You know, things are bad when this wasn't. People are gonna think this is a bit. Oh, there goes Trace trying to be funny. No, this really what just happened. Things are going bad when you're 2 minutes into the countdown, and you look over and you see that you still have the master muted. Which, for those that don't know, that means nobody can hear anything besides me. So that might be the first time that we ran the intro, but didn't really run the intro, and my apologies for that. But that's what kind of happens when you have what I'd call a situation of watching the Cincinnati Reds the last few days, and I laugh because I'm in pain. I try to mask my hurtness by just laughing at this point. It's a comedy of errors, and we're all here for it. And I really do mesmerize at our chat. I mean, you want to talk about a crowd that it's. I mean, they'll go through hell and back for us, apparently. Nick, we actually have people tuning in tonight, so that's good for us, at least.
Catch the fever, baby.
Well, I don't have a whole lot to say other than we get to the box score recap. We'll do the we'll do the best we can with the deep drive of the day. These are the things that
wait for that.
These are the things that we were semi worried about, but. Here we are. We're living our nightmare. Let's do it, Nick. Box score recap presented by you.
Sorry.
That's a smooth shot. I mean, we're doing great.
We're crushing it. We're crushing it.
Yeah.
All right, Reds taking on someone, the Kansas City Royals. Reds trying to avoid getting swept for a fourth time this season at Great American Ballpark. Andrew Abbott held the Royals in check for the first 2 innings, but then in the bottom of the second, there was a rain delay of about an hour and a half. Abbott would come back out after the delay, but he'd give up 2 runs in the third and then 2 more in the fifth, and the Reds were down 4-0. Reds offense was dominated once again by a Royals starting pitcher. On Sunday, it was Brady Singer that had the honor. He threw 6 shutout innings. It was the only time the Reds had a runner in scoring position against Singer was in the first inning. Reds offense finally got a rally started in the 7th. It was started on a single from Santiago Espinal, who ended up with 3 of the Reds' 7 hits on the day. Royals reliever Sam Long tried to let the Reds back in the game. He walked France, Maley, and then India to walk in a run. Elly De La Cruz then came to the plate with the bases loaded, but Elly struck out on a pitch that was clearly a ball low. Steer would strike out to end the inning. And then the Royals would pour it on with 4 runs in the 9th off poor Casey Legumina. Reds lose 8-1. Reds swept by the Royals. Reds get outscored 28-3 in the 3 games at Great American Ballpark. Reds now 60-64 on the season and 6 games out of a playoff spot.
All right. Well, today's the day. It turns out today is the day of all nightmares. When I say to you that I had a conversation with John and his team at DSC, not one single second did we ever think to ourselves, what happens if nobody hits a home run? And then the answer was, well, we'll just use the guys in the minors. And then not once was it ever thought to ask, well, what happens if nobody hits one in the minors? Yet here we are. The DSC deep drive of the day is going to nobody, because there is nobody that hit a home run that was associated with the Cincinnati Reds. I'll tell you what, I thought we were at the depths a little earlier this season. Turns out we found it. The deep drive of the day is sponsored by DSC, regardless that there isn't one. But they are a leader in renewable commodities for biofuel production, specializing in used cooking oil collection, aggregation, and sales. Visit www.deepsouthcommodities.com for more information. And thank you to John and his team at DSC. All right, well, here we go. I know this isn't really on the rundown. 28-3, obviously, is the score. The Royals really did a number on the run differential, and it's a shame. But I do want to say that this although I already knew, Nick, in my heart of hearts, I knew, and I think many of us collectively knew, right? I think that there's certain portion of fans that maybe see us from time to time, especially you being optimistic and hopeful and wishful and all these things. But behind that, there's always a semblance of understanding of where the Reds actually stand. And it really wasn't until today. It took me till August 18th to where the fire completely burned out. Now, I'm not suggesting it should burn out for everybody. I'm fanning my own way here. It's gone. And it got drenched by the Royals. And I don't know if we can sit here and put it all on the fact that the Royals are great, because clearly they're not this good. And each team can get hot at the right time, et cetera, et cetera. And Bobby Witt Jr. was incredible, right? He was everything that you hear about if you don't watch, the Royals. And the Reds just weren't up for the challenge for the second time in a row. I was thinking about this today, Nick. There was 2 series this year, and you could even say there was series dating into late last year, notably the Brewers. But even going into this year, there's 2 series that stick out. You have the Tigers series, where you have an off day. You're coming into what is a home environment that has the fans excited, and people are looking to go to the ballpark, and you have a chance to, if nothing else, just capitalize on the momentum that you've just gained. And not only, Nick, did it not go the way in which we'd have hoped, which was win the series, they didn't even lose these series, Nick. They got swept in these series. And that is the most difficult pill to swallow, is because as a Reds fan, my heart hurts the most, mostly because every time in my life as a Cincinnati Reds fan, every single time it felt like a big opportunity to break through something and get somewhere, it's always just been ripped out right from underneath me. And that's my experience. Maybe not everybody's, but that's been my experience. I still love them, and I'm going to love them till the day that I die. You can't get rid of it. It is what it is. But it's just been so disheartening time and time again, going down to Great American Ballpark and having an opportunity to close the deal, dating all the way back, obviously, to 2012, even going to Atlanta and not being able to score a single run, and even seeing a base hit with a guy on second base and not scoring. And you go down the laundry list of things, Nick, and it feels like this is just a micro version of what happened in 2024, of the macro thing that makes everybody incredibly disappointed and frustrated, and they want to fire everybody, and it's this big toxic, whether it's masculinity or if it's just purely just frustration, we all somewhat have a semblance of understanding of it, and we find ourselves right back in this spot. Not that it's doomsday, because I don't want us to ever come off like that, and certainly you've never been a person like that. But it's certainly find ourselves back in a position as a Reds fan where we're honestly at this point just begging and praying. Even if it means luck, we'll take luck. I don't even care if we have the best people in the building. Just if they find a way to get lucky, that's fine by me, And I just think that over time we've been chiseled of expecting excellence, and now we find ourselves in a position where I honestly, hand up to God, I don't know what to do, Nick. I don't know what to do. And I know that sounds like a big, 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 big thing. And maybe, they figure it out and play relatively well the rest of the way. And we go into the 2025 season thinking we just need to be healthy. If McLean stays healthy, Friedel stays healthy, we'll be fine. The delta between those two things is wide. The question is where should we fall, if any?
Yeah, it's been just like a soul-crushing year. It's for all the good vibes that last year's team had, they felt like they could come back from anything. It feels like this team can't come back at all. They get down and they're toast, and I don't know. I don't think you make anything much of that, but as a fan, it's frustrating. Our friends at and this one belongs to the Reds on Twitter,
right,
pointed out the absolute best. This was the 3rd time this season that the Reds were swept in a series directly after sweeping their previous series. So in April, they sweep the White Sox. They get swept by the Mariners. July, they sweep the Yankees. They get swept by the Tigers. August, they sweep the Cardinals. They get swept by the Royals. And I don't think you make anything of it. I don't think anyone I don't think there's anything to it. But as a fan, it's miserable to watch. I mean, the Reds couldn't have played probably 3 better games against the Cardinals, and they were facing 3 pretty good pitchers. And they played a near perfect series. And then you turn it around, and they could not literally play any worse against the Kansas City Royals. I don't know, man. It's just it's frustrating. I don't think this team is far off, but I don't think that should be used as an excuse either going into this offseason to stand pat. I mean, I think that you should believe that you have a team right now that if you roll out in 2024 or 2025 is a competitor. But why not add on to that team? Why not make the margin for error a lot smaller? And at least, give some people some real hope going into next year. Because if the Reds don't do a lot this offseason, I can say whatever I want. You can say whatever you want. The large portion of this fan base is going to be completely out unless the Reds get really hot early in the year and pull off something like what the Cleveland Guardians did.
Yeah, I mean, I would just openly say that if the Reds are in a pennant race after the All-Star break, I think you're going to have the vast majority of this fan base right back in it. We're all starving dogs, I mean, that's the thing. It's like this isn't, and I know this isn't rocket science. I don't think anybody should suggest that it is. You can run all the marketing tactics you want. You can sit here and run all the demos you want. And listen, I was fortunate enough to rub elbows with some people that, are part of the Reds organization, and just, the idea that you're running metrics on what the new baseball fan's looking for, and you want to try to figure out exactly what age, people start coming to baseball games, and, where exactly the right demographic marketing tactics should be, blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you something. You just got to win. You just have to win. And that's the only marketing thing that truly matters. You don't have to give away bobbleheads. You don't have to do firework Fridays. You don't have to do 3-2-1 nights. You don't need to do any of it. If you win, and I know this isn't rocket science, but if you win, we don't care about any of that. I truly think the ballpark would be full. And maybe, you know what? I'm scared of that to a small extent that I'm wrong. But you take what happened in St. Louis. You take what happened in St. Louis with the fan base that they were proclaimed to have and how unbelievable it is, and every game sold out. You give this city the same success that St. Louis endured, the same success that they got to see or witness year in and year out, and see what happens at Great American Ballpark. It's going to fill up. And at some point, Nick, it's just like we feel like we've been waiting in line, and we've been very patient, and there has been a certain population of within ourselves that has lashed out from time to time, and I'm talking about our fan base as a whole, and maybe rightfully so. But how long do you wait until you're just like, hey, there needs to be an adjustment? And you know what? I will give them all the credit in the world, or benefit of doubt in the world. There were injuries this year, Nick. There were injuries. That mattered. That genuinely mattered. Okay? TJ Friedl and Matt McClain, in and of themselves, folks, in and of themselves, if those two guys were healthy, I promise you this is a much better baseball team. But to your point, Nick, is that enough to sit there and justify that you're not going to go out and play it extra safe, or go out and make sure that you have an absorbent amount of depth? Because a lot of these guys that we fluff up, that we act like are foundational pieces, that are something that you can bank on, are guys like Nick Lodolo and Matt McClain. And I'm not trying to, they both in their own right, Nick, have been unbelievable at times for this team. But let's face it. Let's look at ourselves in the mirror. If you're relying on that, that's a terrible, terrible way to go about business. And I'm not suggesting they are. Maybe they'll make some decisions to fix it. But that's the mindset, in my opinion, that we need to shift to moving forward, and not be like, oh man, we got lucky, we hit the the jackpot, and we have all these superstar young kids coming up, and look what they did this year. It's not guaranteed to happen multiple years in a row, as we know. I still believe in the future. I want that to be clear. But they need to go out and make sure that they don't have an abysmal offense again. That's all I got.
Yeah, I agree. They need to have Matt McClain and Nick Lodolo and Christian Encarnacion Strand be the difference of your team, maybe pushing from 85 wins to 90 wins, not 75 to 80 or whatever. You get what I'm saying. What I don't think they should do is I don't think they should like blow it up or anything like that.
No.
If they want to fire David Bell, I don't care. If that we've talked about that, that's fine. But they can't try to rush like the Colorado Rockies have done, where you just try to go out and sign a bunch of stupid contracts. They still have to be very smart about what they're doing. I still believe they've built a very strong foundation, and they've lucked into some of it with Elly De La Cruz. But yeah, I mean, they need to do some serious moves this offseason. I think this past offseason, I think there was some reasonable excuses why you wouldn't just give up spots to young players, but there's enough young players that haven't earned spots that there's plenty of spots to go around that you can go around and sign, and we've exhausted that.
Yeah,
already.
Of course. In my opinion, right, you have to have one of three things. If you have more than one, then you're doing unbelievable. You can see the Dodgers for what I'm about to say. You either need to be able to cover up your inefficiencies, Nick, by spending a bunch of money and having the payroll and having the ability to go out and just basically pay free agency through a free agency, fix your holes. The second thing that you need to be able to do or would like to be able to do is draft very well. Clearly, right? As a front office, if you can draft well and you're capable of going out and finding guys, and again, Spires didn't get drafted, but my point stands. You're able to get one big leaguer out of your rounds 10 through whatever. If you're able to get one of those maybe every other year, Nick, then you can make up ground that way. And then the last thing is you have to know the international market incredibly well and not miss on those if you go out and do that. And if you want to do something a little differently than everybody else is doing and you can beat people to the punch, then maybe you can win that way. We know the Reds don't have option one at their disposal, or they've never showcased that they have had it. There will be people that argue that they could do it, even though they're not all that rich. And I know that seems absurdly ridiculous for me to say they're not that rich. Just look at it as an overall viewpoint. You watch the Olympics, you see the person that's swimming, they finish last. Guess what? They aren't good in the Olympics. But if they came to your local YMCA, yeah, we know. I'm aware. They'd be the fastest person there. But we're not comparing them to whoever's at the YMCA. We're comparing them to who's at the Olympics. And guess what? All right? The amount of money our owners make, comparatively speaking to the rest of the owners, they're finishing last at the Olympics. They are not rich. Okay? That's my point. So that's number one. Number two is we got to figure out if these guys that we just drafted at the top of the board with this current regime of a front office hits or doesn't hit. And that's a big deal. And it goes directly towards what I said about the number 2 pick in their decision to go with the pitcher instead of obviously basically Condon, right? And if that doesn't work, it's going to be really hard to justify not blowing it up in some capacity. And I am openly saying, Nick, the jury's still out. The jury's still out on the front office. The issue is that there's not a whole lot we can do about number 1. Even if we wanted there to be something different. So my point is like, why even go down that path? Okay. And I'll be honest. I don't know the Castellinis. They could be great people. I'm not talking about them as people. All right. I'm just saying in the grand scheme of economics in Major League Baseball, they just don't have the same funds. They can't play that game. And I'm not making excuses for them. I'm just giving a reality reason as to what's going on.
Yeah, it's just there's no point in arguing that. It is what it is. Like, if you want to have that same conversation every single night for the next 10 years, go for it. Like, I'd rather have conversations about, all right, what players could the Reds bring in that makes the team better? We'll try to evaluate players. Like, it's just so, I don't understand the purpose of it. You're just spinning your wheels every single night.
Exactly. I mean, so I guess that's the most we'll ever probably talk about that subject for the most part. But at least I think it's fair to say why, and that's why, is because we just illustrated exactly why we don't do it. We talked a long time there before we even got into the baseball game today, and the reason for that is there wasn't really a whole lot to talk about. A little tough luck, I guess, with the weather. You'd like to think, Nick, that they wouldn't start a game if they knew that they were going to have to maybe kind of stop for just a second, but it could have been, to be fair, in the area today, it was really weird and spotty showers. It stormed 3 minutes away from one place and didn't rain at all here. So I don't really know the situation. I'm not going to act like a weather person, but it didn't help. That's what I'm getting at.
I mean, it is also getaway day. They're going to Canada, which I've never flown into Canada, but I think it's a little more challenging than your normal, flight to Detroit or whatever. So I'm sure they didn't want this game to drag on all day is what I'm getting at.
Sure.
It didn't seem to affect Brady Singer. Guy only gave up 2 hard hit balls in 6 innings. Oh, man. I mean, he's a good pitcher. He's had a great year. He's got 3.18 ERA, but I don't know. He was dominant. I don't think Andrew Abbott was bad. I think Andrew Abbott has had a lot starts that he wasn't as good, that he had a lot better stat lines than today. He only gave up 5 hard hit balls. There was one ball that was hit off their first baseman, Vinny Pasquantino, I think is how you say his name. That was just a ridiculous piece of hitting that you throw your hands up and say it's the Royals weekend in some respects. But yeah, I thought Abbott was fine. Casey Legumino was not fine. I mean, he got absolutely crushed. I don't know if he makes the trip to Toronto. Probably not. He probably is getting replaced for whoever's starting or the bulk pitcher or whoever tomorrow. But
yeah, I mean, I just don't have a lot to add in regards to the starters and Abbott. And the only thing that was frustrating today, in my opinion, was more or less just the offense as a whole. And it's been the same thing all year. I don't know. It's kind of unique. One thing we get to do, obviously, Nick, sometimes is look in the chat and see where people are frustrated. It's kind of like almost like a little cheat sheet. Sometimes you can see like, oh, this is what people actually care about. I don't know what they care about tonight, but this is what they seem to care about.
I don't know, Trace. On social media, anything that you can spin to David Bell, it is gold right now.
Yeah, apparently. I mean, listen, I got to be honest. I didn't know that I was going to wake up this morning to an absolute avalanche. I mean, I have the whole Fire David Bell bandwagon, and they have me driving the bus. I mean,
they got a picture of you on in their locker.
Yes, they do.
This is our king, Trace. He's going to get rid of David Bell.
It definitely feels that way in my mentions right now. I got to be honest. That was not the intention, but I guess that's where it went. I mean, listen, I'm frustrated like everybody else. I am also very, very much appreciative of everybody who was worried. Clearly, they've never watched the show because they told me that I was going to have a heart attack. I'm like, well, I mean, if they think that's a heart attack, they've not watched this long enough because it goes like that every so often in both directions. But anyways, yeah, what a wild night, what a wild day this has been with all the David Bell firing mentions. But yeah, I tonight, I guess my point is that there's a little disagreement with Elly and his discipline, and listen, I mean, Elly is our best player. I don't want to make this out to be an argument. I really don't want to make this toxic in any stretch of the imagination, folks. Like, let's let the kid live a little, like it seems like, again, we're screaming and yelling at like the teacher in a class full of kids that just could care less about being there and have the most disrespectful manners in the world. It's the teacher's fault that none of the kids are doing well. I'm not yelling at the teacher, and I'm not yelling at Elly De La Cruz. I'm just not going to do it. In fact, that might be my only rule going the rest of the way out. I am not getting on Elly De La Cruz over anything, even if he does stuff that I used to say back in the day. This isn't the Dominican League, because I did say that earlier this season. He can do all that. I give up. I don't care. It was a ball, Nick.
Yeah, I look, in let me preface this. Like, the Reds deserved 1,000% to lose today, okay? But as a baseball fan in that spot, like, I felt cheated. Like, it's brutal. I mean, to get for him to get that call, and there's been some people that have pointed out he's been one of the least fortunate in terms of pitches out of the strike zone all year. Those low pitches, he's not getting. And man, like I don't. We've talked before about the challenge system, and I think we're both in agreement. We'd rather have the full thing, but the challenge system at least makes up for those kind of spots where it's just like it's almost like, why we got replay in the first place. It was so we didn't have games where as a fan we felt cheated, and I felt cheated. Like, I wanted to see Elly De La Cruz, and look, Elly might have struck out on the 2-2 pitch of the next one, but at least he earned his strikeout, right? And our friend Bryce tweeted it out, and he was spot on. I want Elly taking that pitch. Like, the crowd that says swing the bat, that is nuts to me. I mean, he's not going to do anything with that pitch. He's going to hit it straight into the ground. He needs to take that pitch, and eventually he's going to get rewarded with that, because during Elly De La Cruz's career, there's going to be some form of ABS. Whatever it is, it's coming. It's inevitable. So it just sucked in that one spot to just feel cheated, but it was not in any way, shape, or form the reason the Reds lost the game, and they deserve to lose.
So we'll break down the basically two sides of the aisle that are going to come down to this whole Elly swinging at this ball or not swinging at the ball. You're going to have one side of the aisle that doesn't think that essentially the percentage chance of him swinging at that pitch is worth the risk of, one, not only stretching your zone more times than not in general, to then on top of that get yourself in a position where you're going to get out more times than you're going to make it worth just swinging at to put the ball in play. And then there's the folks that obviously think that you should swing, because if you put the ball in play, Nick, you give yourself a chance, and just because it's ABS, it doesn't exist, it doesn't matter. The pitch is whatever the umpire calls it, and if there's a chance he's going to call strike 3 from that position at the plate, then who cares? It's a strike. You got to put the ball in play. That's kind of the mindset. Now, whether or not you agree with that or not, I'm not here to argue that. I'm just laying it out there. That's kind of the mindset. And you know what? There are a little bit of truth from both sides, but I would argue that just because of ABS in and of itself, Nick, that the side of the aisle should be, hey, this is coming down the pike. At worst case scenario, you'll just prepare for that. And best case scenario, it's probably still the better thing to do. That's the mindset. But yeah. So I didn't know that we were going to get into that debate tonight either in the chat, which is fun. I'm glad to see that the chat was on both sides of the aisle there. Other than that, yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said, Nick. Fair enough. Listen, Elly would have deserved the strikeout if he got another pitch and struck out, but that's not what happened. And it was a relatively, would have been nice to have back. I mean, I'm not, like you said, it's hard when you lose 8-1 to be like, well, we could have won the game, but
it was one swing away from being 5-4 Reds. I mean,
yeah, it's a situation that's different.
I didn't get to see that chance, and I just wanted that chance, and I felt cheated.
Exactly. No doubt about it. But ABS is on its way. It's excellent in the minor leagues. I actually was impressed. As a skeptic, I was impressed. It was quick, easy. ABS should be in Major League Baseball. That's not a debate. All right, game time. You're looking to go to a concert. Maybe you're looking to go down to, maybe Paycor, to be honest, or maybe you're looking to go to the Shoe, or maybe you're looking to go to the Nip at night, or maybe you're looking to go to whatever other team around here that plays football that I'm missing that people might get upset that I missed, you can go down to the Game Time app, download the app, and use the code CINCY, C-I-N-C-Y. You'll get $20 off your first purchase, and you will find the best ticketing app in the world. And also, I want to add that you can get lightning deals that I came really close to taking advantage of this weekend, but then realized that I had better things to possibly do. But you know what? I almost did it. Lightning deal. You can get it yourself. And you know what? Not only can you get the lightning deal, if you use the code CINCY, C-I-N-C-Y, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Shout out to Game Time. 988, as always, if you are going through a tough time or you have any kind of situation in your life that you think you might need some help with, as always, please text or call 988. You can also check out mantherapy.org. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to do my best on the back half of this rundown. If we're being honest, Nick. Santiago Espinal. Are you allowed to take a victory lap? You want to do that?
No, I don't want to take a victory lap, but I put it on here because I do think there was a pretty big mistake made this year with the whole how they used Santiago Espinal. And I don't know if it would have made a difference in terms of the season. In fact, it probably wouldn't. But I do think it could have put the Reds in a better spot. So Matt McLean goes down. Noelvi Marte gets suspended. The Reds go and they acquire Santiago Espinal. Good. Proactive move. You get a big league player. You're not filling in someone that has no big league experience, that has no business being on the roster. Good all around. Yep. But the Reds, instead of sticking to what their plan was, which was playing Jonathan India at first base, DH, and in the outfield, they decided to move him to second base and make Santiago Espinal the utility man, which also in turn made Will Benson play every day earlier in the year, which it sounds absolutely ludicrous that Will Benson was playing every day at the beginning of this year, but he was. I said it at the time. I'm not trying to take a victory lap, but I think it was a mistake. I think they should have just said, we'll play Santiago Espinal every day at second base. We'll stick with the same plan with Jonathan India, and then Will Benson's a platoon player. I think, number one, you would have had clearly better defense at second base, which would have, I think, saved some runs. Maybe there's a win or two that comes out of that. I think Will Benson probably doesn't have his confidence is ripped apart earlier in the year because he wasn't playing every day. Now, would it have made a difference to a season? I don't know.
Never know. Yeah.
But he's a guy that clearly, as more than any player I think we've seen in recent memory, his confidence is about as important as anything to him. And so I just think that chain effect of not sticking to their plan with Jonathan India, I don't know. I don't know how much it did, but I'm very confident it was the wrong decision this year. And I don't know. Maybe Santiago Espinal starts 0 for 25 and the fan base is pitchforks and they make the move anyways and it kind of gets back to it. But I wonder, too, if Santiago Espinal had played all year. It took him a while to get his feet under him offensively. I wonder what his numbers would have looked like if he would have been given everyday playing time. And look, he hasn't had an incredible offensive season, but for a lineup that has so much swing and miss, he's just such a different option. And on a day like today, when you can't hit anything, like he gets 3 hits, and they're not, he's not crushing the ball, but right. I just wonder what this, what the chain of events would have looked like if the Reds would have actually stuck to their plan.
There's collateral damage that comes from decisions that you make, not only obviously from a baseball standpoint, but in life in general, right? If you wouldn't have done this, it wouldn't have led to that. And then if that then led to this, and then all of a sudden you find yourself 3 chains down, you look back up and you're like, well, if I just wouldn't have done the first thing, I wouldn't find myself in this mess. I think that's what you just illustrated very eloquently, which is you move India back to second base, which was never a part of this plan in the offseason. And people are going to think that, oh, there goes Trace again, and Nick maybe certainly Trace hating on hating on India. He had a good season. Look at his defensive metrics increased. He's played pretty well. This isn't about India, okay? This is not about him. It's about the plan. And at some point, in order for me to buy into this front office and the managing situation, I'm going to need to see something that I believe is a calculated plan that they've not deviated from. And it seems like that's the thing that they did this season, which was deviate away from where they were intended to go. And I think that where they were intended to go was 100%, okay, the right decision. It almost harkens all the way back, Nick, which is in a weird way. I don't know if it was the right thing or wrong thing, right? You could say it was the right thing, and I'm not here to debate that. But it dates all the way back to when you have a situation where Aroldis Chapman is intended to be a starter, and that's the plan. And you think to yourself, that is a huge leg up for a smaller market franchise, is to have a top-of-the-line starting pitcher. I don't give a damn how good the closer is, okay? I mean, if you're a closer on a team that, and again, he had some years, I'm very understanding that the team was, good. We'll call it that. But my point as a whole is we never, ever, Nick, got a chance to see what that would have looked like if he was a starter. And maybe, Nick, they would have never even made the postseason. It would have been so bad. But I also know it could have led to a bigger thing. And unfortunately, we don't know. And I hope, it was what I'm getting at in a long-winded way, that we don't find ourselves in the exact same position when we start to try to move guys around just to fill a void that we thought we had filled, and we start to make three guys out of place or three things not make sense instead of just one big hole, if you want to call it a big hole. Because honestly, as you mentioned, Espinal might not even have been as big of a hole as we made it out to be. He did get off to a terrible start, Nick. It would have been very hard for this franchise to not play Indy at second base when he's played there and he's been a fan favorite, and you got a guy that's 0 for 25 and he's just got to town. But I got news for you, Nick. The front office can't make decisions based off of the way we feel and the way the fans feel. They have to do what's best for the club. And if they don't start doing that, then I will be disappointed. I'll leave it at that.
Aroldis Chapman, man, that was a dig right into the heart right there. Yeah, that was one of, I think, the biggest mistakes the Reds made. And maybe Chapman would have never been successful as a starter, and like Raisel Iglesias, you end up moving him to a closer just because it's needed for him and for his health and all that kind of stuff. But Raisel Iglesias, they gave him ample opportunities before they moved him to a closer. I think back to that 2013 wildcard game. Aroldis Chapman never pitched in a do or die wildcard game. And I mean, could you imagine if he would have started that game, if he would have been as potential that he could? I mean, right. We might not have this postseason drought right now.
Yeah,
from one move.
Exactly.
One move, he might shut down the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Who got hurt? Who got hurt because he had to move? He something happened. Who got hurt in the back end of that bullpen?
Ryan effing Madsen. $12 million, never pitched an inning for the Reds.
Yeah, and he made Aroldis Chapman become a closer, which I honestly to this day still think was just so so stupid as an organization that you're in. It's just dumb. But again, he had a hell of a career as a closer. I'm not downplaying it. And maybe that was the way it was supposed to go, and the Reds were better for it. But we with all due respect, we're out here. We're throwing Mike Leake at 22 years old or whatever he was in a series that we're trying to close out for the first time since however long. And as you mentioned, Aroldis Chapman pitched in how many of those games? Not many, if any, besides obviously the ones that we won, I guess. But so those do count. But nonetheless, Nick, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, and the worst part is Jonathan Indy's had a great year, but the worst part is we're in the same spot we were last year, where we don't know what to do with him. And I would have loved to have found out this year if Jonathan India could be one of the answers in the outfield, or one of the answers at first base, or one of the answers in one of these other spots, because he has hit this year. He has produced this year. And it's just another thing that makes this offseason more challenging, because you you made a short-term move that I think was the wrong move.
So we'll see. Amed Rosario, he obviously is going to head to Cincinnati. The question, I think, maybe I don't know if it's a bigger question or not. Like, is it a bigger talking point to get into Amed Rosario or who the Reds are going to send down? But obviously, we can get into Amed first.
Yeah, I mean, Amed Rosario, he can hit. I mean, there's no question about that. He has a 113 OPS plus this year, 305 batting average. He's the last couple years before 2023 was 87 OPS plus, but 2022 106. So he's been a guy that can hit. It's frustrating because he's a atrocious defender, and it's just like adding another bad defender. My biggest pet peeve probably with this organization. But there's no point. Sure, it was worth, I guess, taking a flyer on. But you look at where the Reds are at right now, Trace, and they have to send someone down unless there's an injury we don't know about. I saw Craig in the chat, Candelario to the IL, and Candelario was in the lineup today, so I don't. Maybe, I mean, but it seems like it's either Marte or Benson. Marte was out of the lineup today, so it feels like Marte would maybe be the odd man out. One thing that I think we haven't discussed, that I kind of thinking through all of this that I've not mentioned, and I'll probably have some people scoff at this, and that's fine, is we're on August 18th right now. Is it worth burning an option on Will Benson or Noelvi Marte this late in the season? Let me lay out why that is. So both of those guys are down to two options, right? So if you use an option now, next year would be their last option. And I think both of those guys have not proven enough to be bona fide big league players in 2025, which I know might be, people are like, well, why would you be against sending them down now? Let me lay it out. So if you go out and you fill those gaps and those guys start 2025 in the minor leagues, or at some point in 2025, you want the ability to send them down to the minor leagues because you have your full roster healthy, that's your last option. Well, let's say you get to the next year, 2026, and let's say Will Benson kind of becomes this guy that is streaky, that you love having in your organization to be able to call up and send down. You have to keep him on the big league roster the entire year in 2026. So that's something that I don't think we've mentioned, is just because of where the Reds are at and the fact that, is it worth burning an option this late in the season?
I'll start by saying I don't know how big of a decision that truly is. But I'm going to err on the side of what I know now, right? And what I know now, Nick, is that this season is what it is, and it's curtains. It's over. It's whatever term you'd like to use. I would rather save it and maybe have to use it or might need it than to sit and burn it when I know that ultimately it doesn't matter who we bring up here. I mean, God's honest truth, folks. I'm not trying to be rude, but we could, and there's going to be some people that disagree with me fundamentally and wholeheartedly with what I'm about to say, right? We could option, okay, Marte right now for Bobby Witt Jr. And this Reds team still isn't going to make the postseason. You know, all these people that love Bobby Witt, I love him too. We could option Marte tomorrow and get Bobby Witt Jr. for the rest of the season, and we still won't make the postseason. So my question is, why would you burn it if you might need it? And I get what you might say. Well, you know, you want the best people up here, this, that, and the next. Doesn't always work like that, Nick.
There's one other wrinkle to this, too, as well. Is, so from my understanding, and I'm not 100% sure I completely on this, but I believe when a player is placed on waiver, there's a 3-day process on this. So the funny thing is, the Reds might have put in a waiver claim for Rosario on Thursday when things were looking great, right? Where you may
Oh,
say, you know what? We'll burn an option on Marte or Benson, whichever one of them they didn't do. We think Rosario helps us more right now.
that's
And they almost,
100%. That is, oh my gosh, dude.
because it almost doesn't make sense why, like, you wouldn't claim him on, today, right? I mean,
Yes,
that's a
dude.
whole
We
other
need to know. We need to know. Does that ever become public?
No, they're never going to they're never going to admit to that.
Write that down. I want to. If we ever get a chance, if we get a lucky chance to do something and interview people, I don't care if it's even 15 years down the path. If I'm interviewing, hopefully maybe Nick Kroll at somewhere down at the banks or whatever in 2029 or 2035. Who knows when he retires? Point is I want to be able to reference back. On August 18th, 2024, did you put in a claim on Amed Rosario on Thursday when you were excited about the series over the weekend, and then they got swept and you realized the season was over, and then you got stuck in a spot where you just didn't even want this guy? Did that happen? I would love to know if they would know off the top of their head if that happened. But I just want my chance. I need to get my Big J journalist tag so I can go ask these hard-hitting questions, Nick.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So,
who knows?
It'd be hilarious if they'd like DFA him in like 3 days.
It's a chance. I mean, I know people are gonna laugh at the idea of Marte and Benson worrying about their options in 2026, 2027. I get it. I mean, you can laugh at it. We all think it's a little funny, but it's like, might as well save it if we may need it down the way. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really any position players right now that fit the bill, but a guy like Ian Jabot is out of options. And like, it would have been nice to have an option for him this year. Or just, some of the relievers. Like, it really hurt the Reds with the relievers this year where no one had an option. So I think you always do have to think a couple years ahead on that. Now, again, I lean more towards with both of those guys if the Reds feel it's in either one of those players' best interest for their long term to go down to AAA, then I say do it. Like, if you think that their confidence is show shot, that they need to go down, I don't really care. It's
Right.
really, for me at this point, about what is best for those guys to have them be contributors next season.
Yeah. Well,
and they have to know the answer to that.
Correct. If they don't know the answer, then they might as well just save the salary of the Reds so we can put it towards payroll, because they're basically, not doing their jobs. And be clear, I hope they know. All right, Nick. I think at this point we'll jump into Reds MILB. I also want to say we have some supers. We have a nut cutter too, big time. Member for 6 months. We'll get to that in just a minute. But before we do all that, we'll do Reds MILB, and then Alex and Daniel, we will get to supers.
All right, Reds MILB, tough day for the Louisville Bats. They got 2 hits in their 1-0 loss to Omaha. Bats now 57 and 61. Not a whole lot on the offense, believe it or not. Blake Dunn 0 for 3. Rhys Hines 0 for 4. He's now hitting 159, 10 for 63 since being optioned. Joey Wiemer, he's struggling as well, 0 for 4. 3 for 37. That's a .81 batting averages. He got acquired. Davis Wenzel, though, he's not struggling. He's had a couple good days in a row, on base 3 times. On the pitching side, Yasmer Zulueta, really good to see him bounce back. 2 innings, no hits, no runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. So that was a great outing for him. And Brooks Kriske continues to pitch very well. Wondering when he's going to get an opportunity. A perfect inning of relief. Chattanooga, they won 4-3 over Rocket City. The Chattanooga Lookouts win their 3rd series of the season. They take 4 of 7. They actually had an extra game because of a previous rainout. 2 of their 3 series wins have been against Rocket City this year. Jose Acuna, really good outing from him. A pitcher that I really like. 3 shutout innings, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts. He's got a .81 ERA through 22 and a third innings pitched between the ACL, Reds, and AA. 24 strikeouts, just 9 walks. He's been hurt this year, but if he can stay healthy, he's one of the, I think, the more talented pitchers in the Reds minor league system. Andrew Moore, 3 innings, did give up 2 runs, but love to see 6 strikeouts, just 1 walk. It's also the first time that Andrew Moore has gone 3+ innings since May, back when he was with Dayton. So it looks like maybe they're stretching him out a little bit more. Tyler Callahan, 1 for 4. He now has reached base in 18 consecutive games. And then Dominic Patelli and Austin Hendrick, each 1 for 4. Our hero, Bubba Thompson, got the day off. Dayton, they won 7-1 over Fort Wayne. The Dragons have now won 5 straight games. They're now 64-50 on the season. Let's see if West Michigan went final. They did. And the Dragons increased their lead to 2.5 games. West Michigan lost, so they have a 2.5 game lead now for a second half playoff spot. Cam Collier on base 3 times with a double. He's got a .565 on base percentage over his last 15 games. He's got a 20 game on base streak. Hector Rodriguez, 1 for 4 with a double. Jay Allen, 1 for 4 with a pair of walks. Ethan O'Donnell, 0 for 4 with a walk. And my new favorite prospect, John Michael Fail, he was 1 for 5. And then down to high A, tough one for the Daytona Tortugas today. They blew a 6-0 lead going into the 6th inning. They fall 7-6 to St. Lucie. They are holding on to a 1.5 game lead over Jupiter for a second half playoff spot. Sammy Stafura walked twice. Eastman Pineda, he stays red hot. 3 for 4, double and a walk. He's hitting .315, .415 on base percentage over his last 36 games. And then on the pitching side, Nestor Laurent, maybe this guy will end up being the Reds minor league pitcher of the year. 4 shutout innings, no hits, no runs, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. He's now got a 1.44 ERA, .87 whip in 87 2/3 innings pitched with 99 strikeouts and 22 walks.
All right, that was the Reds MLB presented by Nick Kirby, and we got some supers. Alex Binyaz Harris. Alex says, David, quote, we've been in this situation before, end quote, Bell. It's kind of funny. I mean, I thought it was funny. It was humorous. I mean, I think it was humorous. Not saying I totally agree with it, just saying I'm humorous. Daniel Myers has been a nut cutter for 6 months. Leader of men for 6 months. What a guy.
Daniel Myers, he also comments on like every single one of our videos.
Dude, what a guy.
Helps the algorithm.
Yes,
Daniel
he's over
Myers,
here. He's the great video
you're
guy.
a leader of men.
He's the great video guy. I mean, he is a leader of men.
Great show.
Great show. Daniel Myers, what a guy. Imagine India, Stevenson, Elly this year on last year's team. Yeah, that's I mean, that's how it goes, you know. It would have been nice. Would have been nice, because those were the missing pieces if there were one. If there were any, I should say. Besides maybe all the starting pitchers. But, whatever. You know, I thought I had a thought here. Let's do the who, what, when, where, and why, because I think I'm going to close on this one. This is too good not to hold on to the end. David Bell said that once, I think, before, so I'd like to use that too. Who, what, when, where, and why, Nick?
All right, Reds going to Toronto. We got TBDs for the Reds on Monday and Tuesday, and then Nick Martinez on Wednesday. So this is where the Reds are at. I'm thinking Julian Aguilar probably gets called up. That's my best guess. Carson Spires on Tuesday and Nick Martinez on Wednesday. So, wow, how quickly the Reds starting pitching depth evaporated. If they go with Julian Aguilar, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on a guy that I'm not sure if he's pitching or not. But Aguilar was the Reds minor league pitcher of the year last year. Has incredible command. Maybe at times a little bit of fool's gold, but he's certainly deserving of a shot. So we'll see if it's him. For the Blue Jays, it's Kevin Gossman. He comes in 11-8, 4.20 ERA, This guy that finished third in the AL Cy Young voting a season ago. Last 2 starts, been pretty good. 8 innings of 2-run ball against the Orioles, and then 7 shutout innings against the Angels his last time out. So he's pitching much better than he was pitching earlier in the year. The Blue Jays, not been a great year for them, 58-66. They are trying to avoid their first losing season since 2019. They are 8-7 in the month of August. That comes after they made 8 trades at before the deadline. They traded away quite a bit of talent, several relievers, Justin Turner, Kikuchi, I think is how you say his name. So they're down quite a bit, but they are playing pretty well. And the Reds are going to face 3 pretty decent starting pitchers in this series. And it's not been good for the Reds against the Blue Jays. 8-16 all time, 3-9 all time in Toronto. One last side note for you, Trace. The last time the Reds played in Toronto was in 2022, and the Reds couldn't bring 4 of their players with them because of restrictions. So at least they could bring the whole roster this time.
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad to hear we've gotten better. I'm glad to hear things are in the right direction, going down the right path. We got real leadership at the front office. We can get all our players into Canada. That's a progression.
We're back.
We're all the way back. Here's the thing. I was just thinking to myself, I have a sad kind of a comparison to make, you know. I don't know how many of you really care about soccer. Probably many of you don't care at all, but I do know that you probably care about the World Cup, right? That would be me too, because the only time I ever care is if the United States are playing, because I'm a patriot. And this Reds ball club, the Reds franchise, is pretty much like the U.S. men's national team. We got some hope. There's this young core. There's this young group of guys. They're coming up. Just wait for them. They'll be here soon. The next World Cup ain't going to be like this. I can promise you. Yet, you get eliminated by who God knows where. You get eliminated by all of them. And you think to yourself, we should fire the guy. They fire him. Maybe that's the Reds' next step. We'll find out. See you tomorrow.